And quite frankly, when you tell people you need to do X, Y, Z to lose weight, you don't consider the fact that there are different ways to do it. And you can find a way to get there without consuming yourself with guilt, without consuming yourself with shame, and whilst actually just still enjoying life, maintaining a healthy social life, maintaining a healthy relationship with food, and maintaining a healthy relationship with your body and the scale. But when you're force-fed misinformation online by massive creators, it is heavily contributing to the development of poor relationships with food, is developing to disordered eating, and is quite frankly contributing to a lot of people developing eating disorders. Honestly, I feel like this is going to be a good video. Although it's an old one, it's an interesting one because a lot of the nonsense in this video still floats around the industry today. And this stems from ZoeUnlimited's video, How I Fixed My Metabolism. Straight off the bat, it's a banger, so we're gonna have a field day debunking loads of information and hopefully providing you with some correct information and education to better help you along your journey when it comes to nutrition, weight loss, muscle gain, whatever it may be. If at any point throughout this video you actually disagree with anything I'm saying, please do consider subscribing to the channel, as it does mean a lot to me. And as always, TFNL clothing is linked down below in the description as well. Straight into it, let's get cracking.
The mysterious concept behind why some people barely eat anything and have a high body fat percentage, and why some can eat intuitively anything they want and still be fit and healthy.
Ultimately, to simplify, it comes down to calories in versus calories out. And that's going to be expanded on much later because there's a lot to that. But straight off the bat, let's just start with the basics. If you consume more calories than you expend, thus putting you in a calorie surplus, you'll gain weight. If you expend more calories than you consume, thus putting you in a calorie deficit, you'll lose weight.
I always get the shock reaction of, oh my God, you eat this much?
This much? This much?
Or, oh my gosh, I thought you're the type to only eat salads and sip on celery juice. And like, I get it. I have a small frame and a low body fat percentage, so most people naturally assume that I barely eat a grain every day until they eat with me and realize that on a day I have a good appetite, which is basically every single day, I can eat as much as, if not more than, the average male.
Oftentimes people say, oh, I can eat so much food, I just don't gain weight. But how consistently are you eating that much food? Probably not very. When it comes down to it, having a mass meal once a week or whatever it may be, where you're consuming a lot of volume or a lot of calories as a one-off, is not going to result in mass amounts of weight gain. If that were the case, you'd look at individuals like Matt Stoney, who is a competitive eater, who is very slim, but can put away like 20,000 calories in the go. Eric the Electric is another example, who did like a 50,000 calorie cheat day in one day. He ate 50,000 calories or something obscene. It may not be that number, but it was wild, and he's still very lean. Because again, consuming a mass amount of calories in one go will not suddenly result in mass amounts of weight gain. It kind of has to be a consistent thing. Just like if I don't eat today, I'm not going to lose mass amounts of weight and get shredded, because again, I need to be in a deficit for a sustained period of time. Like with gaining weight, you need to be in a surplus for a sustained period of time. So when people say, oh, I eat loads, how often are you eating loads? Let's look at your weekly or even monthly average of calories. Probably tells a better story.
Not that long ago, I was the one munching on 2 chicken drumsticks and kale every single day and was puffy in the sense that I had a pretty high body fat percentage and, to be honest, was just weak.
Oftentimes when this is the case, or you hear this from individuals, they say, oh, I was eating barely any calories, but I was still overweight, or I had a high body fat percentage, whatever it may be. You flip around and simply ask is, how consistent were you with your diet back then? Probably not very, because when you're eating a very limited and restricted diet like Zoe claims she was, it's really hard to remain consistent with it because it's just miserable, quite frankly. It's boring. It's not very fun. So that often results in inconsistency, that often results in potentially binging, and loads of other things that actually in turn result in you eating more calories over a longer period of time because you are deviating from the diet on a more regular basis than you might actually realize. So again, ultimately it comes down to how consistent were you with those low calories? Probably not very. Another thing I want to add is that for years, the realm of fat loss, weight loss, dieting, whatever it may be, just nutrition in general, has been so heavily consumed with misinformation and absolute nonsense. It's no wonder why so many people have developed such an unhealthy relationship with weight loss, with the scale, with food, and quite frankly, in a lot of cases, have unfortunately developed disordered eating or eating disorders because they are being bombarded and consumed with just utter crap in the industry, which is essentially is the same useless nonsense that was promoted 40, 50, 60 years ago. It's essentially being regurgitated today. When you have individuals with huge platforms like we do here, who are essentially pushing misinformation, stating that this is how you get skinny, it wasn't calorie deficit, for example, it was XYZ, that then further enforces the issue, which is people are confused when it's not that complicated. You are told that you have to do this to lose weight, this to lose weight, when quite frankly, it really does boil down to energy. Calories in versus calories out. And if anyone comes to you and says, that's not how it works, it's not calories in, it's not calorie deficit, quite frankly, they're wrong. Science exists for a reason. You can argue it all you want, but the evidence is there. If I came to you and said 2 + 2 doesn't equal 4, you'll turn around and tell me to shut up because you know it does. But if I said, well, actually, no, it equals 5, there's no validity behind what I'm saying outside of because I said so. And that's ultimately what a lot of people kind of back their arguments with. I didn't lose weight in a calorie deficit. I lost weight because of this. This is because I said so. There's no evidence there. And quite frankly, when you tell people you need to do XYZ to lose weight, you don't consider the fact that there are different ways to do it. Sure, yes, you do need to be in a calorie deficit, but how you get there, so many different ways. And you can find a way to get there without consuming yourself with guilt, without consuming yourself with shame, and whilst actually just still enjoying life, maintaining a healthy social life, maintaining a healthy relationship with food, and maintaining a healthy relationship with your body and the scale. These are all doable, but when you're force-fed misinformation online by massive creators, you don't really understand how that is possible. You're ultimately left feeling pretty crappy, and I'm not surprised. I know it's a bit of a controversial hot take, but I do think videos in which misinformation, as we are seeing here, is being promoted, is heavily contributing to the development of poor relationships with food, is developing to disordered eating, and is quite frankly contributing to a lot of people developing eating disorders.
Your metabolism will not improve if you choose to not be active. Period. I once thought I could just take the easy way out and not exercise and just eat the bare minimal calories, which was literally starvation.
Actually quite a relevant point. Ultimately, you have a couple of tools in your arsenal when it comes to fat loss and weight loss, is that you have things like calorie deficit, where you're consuming less food. So the diet tool, you have the exercise and activity tool, where you're expending more energy. XYZ. So you've got a few tools in that. Rather than trying to get 100% of your results from one, it makes more sense to try and split it. So incorporating as many different tools into your arsenal as possible to hopefully give you the best results or best chance of success. So if you only nail your diet and don't worry about anything else, you may go this far. But if you maybe a bit more lenient with your diet, which in turn actually may result in you remaining more consistent because it's more sustainable, so your diet comes down to here, but you fill up the extra and even more with a bit of additional activity, you may find your results are even better because you're tackling it from different angles. You're not just focusing on one thing, you're thinking about, okay, I'm going to move more and I'm going to eat less. Because if you were just eating less, let's say you had to eat 1,000 calories less a day, well, that's quite a lot of calories to me, so it's quite miserable and boring. So why not say, actually, I'm going to eat 500 calories less a day, but then I'm going to do 500 calories of cardio. That's just an example, random numbers, but hopefully you get the gist of it makes more sense to try and tackle it from multiple areas and take that allowance from different tools.
Sure, I lost weight, but weight is not indicative of anything.
Not entirely true. Weight is indicative of many things, but what people often associate weight to is purely fat. So when they say I've lost weight, they automatically assume I've lost fat, or they say I've gained weight, they automatically assume they've gained fat, when in reality weight can be comprised of many things. For example, weight can be comprised of muscle gain or loss, it could be fat gain or loss, it could be water retention, it could be digestion. For example, if you eat more carbs, you're likely going to retain more water. That may be reflected on the scales. If you consume more salt, you're likely going to retain more water. Could be reflected on the scale. If you're stressed, could be reflected on the scale. If you haven't digested your food properly, could be reflected on the scale. So weight is a product of many different things. It's not just fat, basically. So although weight is relevant and weight does definitely tell a part of the story, it doesn't tell the whole story. Very quickly, as always, the link down below, you've got a few things. You've got a link to apply to work with myself on a one-to-one coaching basis where I can coach you towards your goals wherever you may be in the world, because it's all online. And you've also got the link to the TFNL workout guides, which not only include some nutrition bits and bobs, they tell you what to do, show you how to do it, and tell you why you should be doing it too. You've also got the link to the TFNL clothing, and you've also got the link to the TFNL group coaching, which for less than $1 a day, you can follow a home workout or gym workout program created by me, and you can interact with me and the community, which is bloody cool. Again, as always, they're all linked down below in the description.
Lean muscle mass actually determines 74 to 80% of your resting metabolic rate. Those who are very active and have a high degree of lean muscle mass will naturally metabolize faster.
So although muscle is arguably the most metabolically active tissue, which means that essentially of all the tissues, muscle, fat, etc., muscle is the one that's most calorie demanding. More muscle means you're going to burn more calories. Although more fat also means you're going to burn more calories, you're going to burn less. So fat only requires this many extra calories, muscle requires this many extra. So in that sense, we call it the most metabolically active tissue. Height is actually far more relevant when it comes to your maintenance calories and just calories in general than muscle is. For example, I'm about 6'3". I consume on average, let's say 4,500 to 5,000 calories a day. And I'm creeping up like this very slowly. Then we flip around to Phil Heath. Phil Heath is a bodybuilder, multiple time Mr. Olympia winner, huge, far more muscle than I can ever dream of having. He's about 5'7". So he has far more metabolically active tissue than I do, far more muscle mass, honestly huge amounts. But I'm also a fair chunk taller than him. When he is also massing, we don't consume wildly different calories. But if muscle was so metabolically active and so relevant for calories, surely someone who has maybe like 100 pounds more muscle than me, who knows, would burn far more calories than me. Sure, like I said, I'm, let's say, 3/4 of a foot taller, but 3/4 of a foot versus 100 pounds of muscle, surely that's 3/4 of a foot isn't too crazy, but let's say 100 pounds of muscle, that's a lot. So why do we consume a similar amount of calories? Something to ponder. So height is far more relevant there. Although obviously you can't change your height, unfortunately. When it comes to factors you can change, yes, muscle's probably going to be one of the biggest ones, but probably isn't going to be as influential as you think.
Exercising for weight loss, I hated it. It felt like something I had to do, and I focused on burning calories. But exercising for the sake of becoming healthier and stronger is fun.
In fairness, that's actually a really valid point. I actually did a reel on this actually before, right? I kind of spoke about how exercise doesn't just need to be used as a tool for fat loss. It can be used for a tool for many things. Enjoyment, healthy habits, activity in general, muscle gain, strength gain, whatever it may be, fitness, who knows. You can use exercise as a tool for many things, and it doesn't just need to be isolated to, I exercise to lose fat. You've got to find what keeps you motivated, you've got to find what keeps you disciplined, you've got to find what keeps you consistent. Once you find that, the other things kind of fall into place as byproducts, and it becomes a bit easier to stay on track.
As you all know, I am a foodie at heart, and I cannot believe that I tormented myself to low-key starve and eat food I hate for the sake of calories just to lose weight. And it didn't even work because all I did was to slow down my metabolism.
It didn't work because of what you've just said. You were starving yourself and you're eating foods you hate, which in turn probably means you weren't sticking to it. Because again, if you're starving yourself and hating what you're doing, it's going to be really hard to remain consistent. So no, you didn't not lose weight because of the calories or the slowing down of metabolism. You probably didn't lose weight because you weren't consistent with your diet, because it wasn't sustainable. One of the big things when looking at how good a diet is for you is finding out how consistent you can be. I always say the best diet in the world is the one that, although definitely has to align with your goals, but is also the one that you can remain most consistent with. If you can't stick to it, it's probably not very good, and that's kind of what's being indicated here, is I doubt as though we could stick to it because, quite frankly, it sounds bloody miserable, and I couldn't stay consistent with that. So that lack of sustainability probably resulted in inconsistency, which again results in results not being achieved. Find a diet you can stick to, one that sure works towards your goals, but also meets your needs and also helps you remain consistent because it is sustainable. It may mean your goals are maybe met a bit slower, but at least you'll get there. If you choose a diet that you can't stick to, sure, on paper you may get to your end goal in 8 weeks, but if you can't stick to it, you'll never get there.
If you ever had an ice cream or a piece of cake, it does not mean you don't care about your health.
Actually, a really valid point there. A lot of people who experience things like food guilt when they maybe have something they enjoy because it's not on plan. Quite frankly, why can't you have things you enjoy? Firstly, no one's perfect. No one sticks to something perfectly 365 days of the year. And if they say they do, they're either a bloody mutant or they're lying to you. And secondly, balance. Balance is key. If you deprive yourself from enjoying things and deprive yourself from the foods that you look forward to and the foods you really just enjoy eating, and also the memories you're sharing with your friends, your family, whoever it may be, firstly, you're probably going to be a bit miserable, and that's not going to be good for the old mental health. And secondly, you're not going to be able to stick to it, therefore it's not sustainable, therefore it's going to be pretty tricky to reach your goals. You are allowed to eat foods you enjoy. You're allowed to have a bit of ice cream. You're allowed to have a little bit of cake. If it's really that important to you, it comes down to calories in versus calories out. Factor it into your daily calories. In the grand scheme of things, once in the blue moon is not going to hurt you. And let's say you do really want to be as consistent as possible. Weekly calories are more important than daily calories. Let's say you go 600 calories over on one day because you had a bloody fantastic piece of cake. Just go 100 calories under on the next 6 days and the weekly calories will even out. Sorted. It doesn't need to be scary. It doesn't need to be overcomplicated. And one thing it certainly doesn't need to do is encourage you to feel guilty when you certainly shouldn't. Once you start feeling guilty about the food you're eating, or actually just feeling guilty of the fact that you weren't 100% consistent, or feeling guilty that you enjoyed something that you feel like you shouldn't enjoy, a problem starts developing there. Firstly, it's not going to be sustainable. Secondly, you're punishing yourself for something you don't need to be punished for, because quite frankly, you're human and you're allowed to enjoy your life. There's only so much of it we get to experience. Let's have some fun with it while we're here. And thirdly, you can still achieve your results and your goals. What's the rush? What's the deadline? Do not ruin your relationship with food. Understand that, like I said, progress isn't linear. You're trying your best, and quite frankly, it's a learning curve. You're going to learn what works for you, what doesn't work for you. Along the way, you're going to have blips, but along the way, you're going to learn some pretty cool things, and you're going to figure out how you can fit these enjoyable foods into your diet while still working towards what you want to achieve.
Take the time and reflect on why you want to enhance your metabolism, and remind yourself that with all changes, it will take time for results to show.
Actually, a valid point there. Patience. Things aren't going to happen like that overnight. Honestly, when you say you want to lose X amount by this date, delay the date a bit more. Gives you a bit more freedom, but also gives you a bit more of a realistic approach to things because progress isn't linear. Someone says to me, "Oh, Harry, how do I get strong? Lift heavy." Okay, for how long? As long as possible. Do things right and do things well in a sustainable manner for a bloody long time, and you'll probably see some bloody fantastic results. If you lift for 20 years consistently, I guarantee, even if you're not lifting that well and you're being a bit of a sausage with it, you guarantee you're going to see some pretty cool results in 20 years because quite frankly, you've just been patient. Just like all my videos, this is simply my opinion, and I'd love to hear your opinion in the comment section below. A lot of misinformation, a lot of silly nonsense from Zoe here, but I will give her one thing. There were some valid points as well, and I'm never going to take that away from her, despite me not always agreeing with a lot of her content. Most of her content. Thank you for tolerating me. Thank you for tolerating my waffle about metabolism, and thank you for tolerating the video.